Hey y'all, so we're back with Mail Order Soulmate. We left off on page 208, but it is the 1st of July, so happy July, you guys. I hope you have an amazing July month. My birthday is July 31st, the very last day of July, and I will be 20 years old. So yeah, that's that. But we're back with Mail Order Soulmate. We're going to pick up where we last left off, so let's get started. Okay. So, are we having a reception or not? Why should we? He asked. For a split second, she thought he was giving her a surely retort, but quickly realized he was actually asking, wanting to hush us out with her like a real partner. The town expects one, and they really seem to want one. We've covered that already, he said. Want and expect are two different things. He tipped his head, suiting her the point, I suppose. I'm afraid that if we, two people with the most orthodox marriage in town, say no, they will. She inhaled loudly as she thought through all the possible consequences. It's not the most unorthodox. Sorry? It's not. Blueberry Springs has gone nuts with marriages of convenience and the like over the past year or two. Although we are the first to do the mail order thing, you make it sound like I was shipped in a box. Some assembly required. For a marriage or for me, she challenged. Your pick, he added. Don't worry about me and the town. If you start doing things for them and their sake, they'll never let you stop. Who says I'd be doing it for them? I can see it in your gaze. Cannot. Can so. Zach leaned across the table, his eyes soft and unthreatening. She wasn't uncomfortable with his probing, even though she knew he was looking deep. For once, she didn't want to hide. You're a pleaser, he announced. Am not. Except with your husband. You're happy enough arguing with him all day long. She gave him a dark look and huffed, hoping to hide the fact that she wanted to smile. Catherine was letting Zach stare her down, see that she had doubts about denying town a baby and bridal shower, as well as a reception in their honor. She cared what they thought, not just for her sake, but for his. He could see it, the hesitation, the worry. And now he couldn't kid himself that it was about creating that perfect family and community upbringing for Xavier. She wanted that. But he could tell that a reception and shower weren't about Xavier in her mind. They would be about and for him. Zach. She would pretend their marriage was genuine and that she was his real wife and always accepted in order for him to keep face around town. She would fake whatever was needed so he wasn't judged. She was a good woman with a past that sometimes frightened her. And he didn't have a dozer on her. He didn't have the information he needed so he could do everything in his power to keep her safe. Because that's what he was going to do. Start watching her more closely, digging for information in ways that didn't cause her to run. How was he going to do that? How was he going to be the man she was beginning to trust and act like an agent too? He shook off his thoughts. He needed to give her a chance to open up on her own. They made good progress over the past 2 days. And if he wasn't careful, he could mess up everything, and then he wouldn't be able to help her. Patience. He needed patience. He felt as though untangling his grandmother's embroidered threads would be easier than this. He focused back on the conversation and stated, You worry that the town will still talk about me and what kind of marriage I got myself into if we don't play it up and celebrate like a real couple? She was turning her cup in her hands. If it was a fun one from Wally's that said running lot in Blueberry Springs, and had a stick figure running from a barrier. Rumor was that Jen had designed it all alone with some t-shirts. Catherine stopped fiddling with her mug, her somber eyes meeting his. Yes, and? Do you like to bring in strays who take advantage of you? Sorry. He had a pretty good idea what she was getting at, but he wanted her to voice it, try and defend the faulty notion, and then kill the very thought where it stood, when she realized how ridiculous it all was. Because in his eyes, it simply wasn't true. She wasn't a stray, and the marriage wasn't a pity deed for either of them. Zach, I think you know what I mean. She stood, taking her mug with her. The warm tone she'd been using replaced by a clipped, cool British one. He hooked his fingers around her waist, holding her loosely so she wouldn't flee. Please explain. There's nothing to explain. You're a great guy who everyone respects. There's no love in this marriage, and it looks like I'm taking advantage of you, that I'm using you. Zach released her, the words striking surprisingly deep. That's not true. Which part? People won't think those things. They already are. I overheard them at the party. He reached for her hand again, slipping his fingers through hers, locking her hand gently in his. Let's vow to not care what others think, and keep this marriage about what really matters. Let's keep it about what works for us, about what we want and need it to be. That's the only way we're going to be happy. She nodded, her eyes on his hand. He gave a squeeze and felt the warmth of her response travel all the way up his arm and settle in his chest. She leaned forward, her voice lowering. So how are we going to wiggle our way out of a showering reception? And in that moment, Zach thought Catherine might just be a match for him in ways he hadn't dared hoped.